Lockdown, lockdown. This is an emergency alert. Please follow lockdown procedures. Go into the nearest room or building, lock the door, and turn off all lights.
I was in 6th grade. Small, really impoverished school in California. That morning, we had a lockdown drill. Super common and recognizable at this school. All the teachers would warn us ahead of time to save the panic. A short buzzer would go off, and then our principal would go on the intercom and give this huge speech about how this was a lockdown drill. That when a real lockdown came by, the buzzer would play for longer and she wouldn't do any announcements. We all shut the curtains and sat in the classroom. It was over before we knew it, and the day went by. But, as the day progresses, this picture kept popping up. From the glances I got, it was a picture of some notebook paper. I assumed it was something personal somebody lost, and everybody was just being dicks, showing it around, so I didn't even ask to see it. Finally, it was the second to last period of the day. I ducked out of the class to use the restroom. While I was at the sink, the buzzer went off again. It was so long I wanted to cover my ears. No announcements, no explanation. A real lockdown. You're supposed to stay where you are. In my case, hop on top of a toilet and lock my stall. But I was not about to sit here and wait for the intruder. Screw that. I ran out of the bathroom, hoping to go back to my classroom, but it was locked, and there was no way my teacher was letting me back in. I was panicking, so I kept going down the hall, trying each and every handle I could. Finally, I found this other girl sobbing as she kept trying to open the same handle. I grabbed her hand and led her down my path as I kept trying doors. After only a minute, though it felt like hours, we found an empty computer lab whose door was open. We went inside and hid until the entire thing was over. The school tried to keep it silent, but we all eventually found out a kid brought his dad's gun to school. He was mad, but then realized he didn't want to hurt anybody. He hid in the bathrooms and called the police on himself. Nobody got hurt and I never really saw the kid again. I think the scariest part was the picture I was talking about earlier. I found out, after everybody figured out what happened, that it was his list. I was number 9. We were in the middle of presentations for a project. My turn was just about to come as my buddy was finishing up. I didn't want to present, so I was going to ask my teacher if I could use the bathroom. I almost did, but then we heard it. Okay, maybe someone dropped a textbook on its face in the hall. Maybe some chairs fell over, but third shot confirmed the worst. There was some banging on the door's window. It was a security guard letting us know there was a shooter in the building. Everyone jumped from their desks and quickly paced to the back end of the classroom. We sat against the wall. The teacher turned out the lights. The room was still brightly lit up by the laptops and the projector. That's what worried me. If the shooter came walking down our halls, he would know we were in the classroom immediately. We sat back here for about an hour and a half. There was a lot of whispering and whimpering as we heard yelling and screaming from the outside. What was strange was that we didn't hear an announcement in the intercom telling us to lock down. Not until the fire alarm went off. It turns out the main office and some classrooms, pretty far from the shooting area, didn't hear a thing until some security told them, "Do not leave your classrooms. There is no fire. There is an active shooter in the building. Remain in your rooms. This is not a drill." Then there was the announcement. There was a fire though. We didn't know about that until much later, but the shooter had armed himself with a frightening arsenal. A 12 gauge, a Glock, a machete, and 3 or 4 Molotovs. He threw one Molotov in the library, not hurting anyone but setting 2 bookcases on fire. Five shots total, though I only heard 4. With the last one, he gave himself a haircut like Kurt Cobain. The police came, which scared some people because they thought it was the shooter pretending to be a cop. We were rescued. Luckily, everyone survived. I do not forgive the shooter. My brother saw everything and it changed him. My brother isn't the same. It was 8th grade, and it was the end of the day. Our homeroom teacher left earlier in the day, so we were by ourselves when we went back to our lockers. As we finished packing up, we hear a code red announcement come through speakers. My heart drops. Everyone in my homeroom rushes into the classroom with no teacher, and we try to lock the door. Keep in mind our homeroom class was very small, so maybe 7 to 10 kids in there. 2 of my friends struggled to lock the door as I moved desks as cover for us to hide behind. All of a sudden, I turn around and I'm in the class alone. They couldn't get the door locked, so they just ran into another class. I was petrified. I ran to the door to see the hallway empty with not a peep coming from out there. I tried to lock the door myself, but it was stuck. I know in my mind that I have to make a decision to find another class or stay alone. I decided to leave the class and run to another door because the lock was broken and I had already formed the desks, so if someone came in, they would have known someone was there. I sprinted to the class next door to mine and I knocked several times super fast. I didn't want to bang on the door because I was trying to be as quiet as possible but loud enough for them to hear. After about 10 knocks, nobody came, so I ran back to the original class and texted my friends to see if they could tell the teacher what I was gonna go to do. Only one person responded, and they were in the class 3 doors down. The class I was in was at the back end of the hall while theirs was at the front. I knew I had to run for it. I texted back, "I'm gonna knock 3 times, stop for a second and do another 3 for them to know it was me." Then I looped my head out into the hall, saw nobody and booked it for the class. As I'm doing the knocks, I hear running from near the gym area, which was outside the hall to the right. I started to panic. They finally let me in and I told them what I was hearing. The teacher put us in the storage closet. It was a cooking class, so she grabbed a pan and stood by the door. The running passes our door down the hall and out the back door. Shortly after, we could hear a few more footsteps, sounding like they were running after the first person we heard. We sat there with our hearts beating out of our chests for about 2 hours while we could hear helicopters and police sirens coming from outside. At around 5 o'clock, the lockdown was finally lifted and the teachers were informed what happened. Apparently, a man shot his wife and fled into the woods beside the school. The police chased after him as he ran to the school to hide. Nobody in the school was harmed, but it was a very scary experience nonetheless.